So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the first day of the AppSec Village in this year's DEF CON 29. It was kind of hard for us to cancel this year's in-person part again after last year as well. But we felt I'm very excited to have all these people joining us virtually because it shows me that the community lives even without the in-person part, and this is always very heartwarming. The good news is that the world became a bit smaller with COVID because we suddenly have speakers that could never come to DEF CON before that. Also attendees, we have attendees that are joining us from all over the world. And to you, I say good morning or good evening or a nice day. No matter where you are, we're happy that you joined us. And this is really an exciting way for us to start. We're going to start our sessions with a panel of specialists. This is going to be the colorful AppSec, red, blue, or purple panel. So my name is Erez Yalon. I'm the founder and mayor of AppSec Village. I will be the moderator today. And in this session, we will hear from 3 experts. Each expert will speak for about 7 minutes to share their perspective or big idea, one after the other. Following all three speakers, we will have a Q&A session for the remaining time. Just voice panel. You can write a question in the chat, in the text channel at any time, and I will try to put all the questions in the discussion in the panel later. If you have a specific speaker you want to ask the question, please specify that in your question. So let's get started. First in line, we have Pedro Umbelino. Pedro is a security researcher, hardware maker, software breaker, red to the bones hacker. Pedro will share with us his red perspective. Take it away, Pedro.
Thanks, Erez. So, hello everyone. It's really great to be here at DEF CON 29. As Erez said, I know that the conditions are less than ideal, but still it's great to see conferences going above and beyond to deliver meaningful content, even with the situation that we've been facing almost 2 years now. So my name is Pedro Umbelino, aka Cryptor, and I've come to talk to you about red team exercises and their focus on AppSec. Now, I've done my share of red team exercises throughout the years. Everything from Hollywood-style social engineering, designing and placing custom implants inside an organization office, to less elaborate but not necessarily less time-consuming network assessments, pen testing, code reviewing, software reverse engineering and exploitation, and so forth. What I really want to stress today in this short conversation we're having is the following. Red teams and or general offensive security exercises are, or should be, the most realistic exercise that your company can make to stress test the ability to withstand and recover from real attacks. So let me rephrase this. Regular offensive security exercises are the most realistic security exercises that your company can make. Now, it does not matter how solid you think your defenses are, does not matter how expensive is your software or equipment, does not matter how many issues you solved in your SaaS report, it does not matter how agile is your DevSecOps implemented, and it does not matter how much money you put in your bug bounty program. All of those things, they help, of course. But none of those matters if you don't actually test all your defenses in a real-world scenario. Because attackers won't play nice. Attackers won't respect your rules of engagement nor your very well-defined scope. And attackers for sure won't focus only on your Android application and leave the API servers alone, for example. They won't leave the database server and test it because it's off scope. So that won't happen, and that's why you should care. Now, this is where red teams shine. We think like attackers. We go beyond CVSS or the high-low impact vulnerability classification or even bug bounty scores and rewards. We know malicious attackers are always innovating. They are figuring out new attack vectors, and so are we. They constantly search for new vulnerabilities and how to exploit them, how to stay undetected, new ways to deploy phishing campaigns and lateral movement, and so forth, and so are we. As a red team, we will be, hopefully, the first wave of highly motivated and skilled attackers that a company will face. So, in AppSec, red team exercises are often viewed as, some form of code auditing, code review, application pen testing, or in some cases a bug bounty program that's limited in scope and limited in time. But it can be and should be much more than that. Because as red teamers, we become users and we aim for administrators. We explore in depth your application ecosystem, how all the pieces interconnect, and the potential vulnerabilities and risks that are associated with those vulnerabilities. Because some risks may not even have a CVSS score worth of mention, but the PR cost would just be too much, for example. And this is something that you probably won't catch on a bug bounty or code review. We are attackers that care about your organization and try to figure out how to inflict harm in every possible way before others do. Now, I'm not trying to remove value here from bug bounty programs. They have their intrinsic value. In my case, sometimes even between engagements, I occasionally participate in bug bounties for fun and, of course, profit. But here's the thing. I've received bounties on critical issues more than once, and until this day, I still don't have the real idea of what the application was for. I just knew that I shouldn't be able to perform certain operations without even being authenticated. Like, for example, delete all users from a system or forward arbitrary reports to the internal network in a network device. But I never really understood what I was attacking, nor I had the perspective of the company core businesses and the risks they prioritized. So, in this sense, I wasn't worried about the organization. I was just worried about getting a quick and nice bounty. And this is where I think red teams differentiate, at least in my conception of what a red team should be. We become users of your applications and we explore them in depth from all angles. We try to understand your user base, your business models, to have a clear view of what's at stake. And in this way, we strive to make your company safer and understand your organization values and cultures. And I think this goes way beyond an on-off engagement. I think so, red team assessment benefits for organizations, I think they are clear because organizations can have a snapshot in time on how secure they are at that moment. They can measure how well DevSecOps is benefiting their code. For example, they can compare different SaaS or code analysis tools for performance in the real world. And I think importantly, organizations can identify new risks that they were not in the original threat and attack models. So in this way, they can reliably assess their state of readiness when a threat actor decides to attack. And all of this that we're talking about is critical information for decision makers to properly plan for the future. And I think it can hardly be obtained by other means except for a realistic attack exercise. A red team exercise is not just about discovery, the organization weaknesses and vulnerabilities, but it's really an attempt to employ lateral and outside of the box thinking regarding the overall security of the organization and its business. In a way, it's a statement. And it's a clear effort from the organization to understand their current security stance and to continuously improve it while going forward. It's a commitment with secure development now and for the future. Well, if you take anything along with you regarding my intervention here, I hope it's the following. Red teams and their regular offensive security engagements are the most realistic security exercises your company can make, security-wise, and in my opinion, one of the best ways to measure and prepare for real-world attacks with all its implications. And that's what I had to say for today. Erez?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Pedro. I think there are a lot of takeaways from that. So our blue expert is not here yet. So we're going to jump straight to the next expert, Tanya Janca. Tanya is not someone we need to introduce, I think, but anyway, she's the CEO and founder of We Hack Purple. Let's try and unite us all in one common goal and share your purple perspective. Tanya, go ahead. Tanya, are you with us? Okay, so while we try and get Tanya, I see that Luis joined us. So that's good timing. So let me introduce you, Luis. Our next speaker is Luis Gomes. He's the one that got away from AppSec to the boardroom. He was born a security fanatic, now he's a CISO. With 14 years in big tech and banking blue teams, moving now to a more managed focused role. Luis will share with us his blue perspective. Take it away, Luis.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. First of all, I'm all in terms of blue teams. I always see this as a evolution of blue teams. For me, it's mostly pros versus Joe.
Luis,
this honesty comes from the fact that normal red team has the amount of shine below the majority. Am I speaking too low or is it cutting?
No, it's cut.
What about now?
It seems better. Let's try again.
Okay. Sorry, so I need to be a little bit faster in order to maintain this precarious situation that I have on internet. So in terms of blue team advances or the history, evolution of blue teams, what I see happening right now is that up until now, blue teams always relied on pattern matching, log leaking, and being the guys that are behind the wheel. Like we are trying to catch up with red teams, and the result of that is that we never get the amount of time that we need to be creative. And moving forward from the history that we've been pursuing up until now, it's always we are a step back or we are a step behind the attackers. The only evolution possible is for us to leverage machine learning or AI in order to remain on top of what is pattern matching of what we do today, but allowing us humans, the human part, the creative part of security, to be on top of our game and creating stuff that the red team never seen before. Because up until now, what we have been seeing is we always try to catch up to them, to people like Pedro, or even after when Tanya speaks, people like Tanya, but we never reach that level of development. And moving forward, we can only achieve the ultimate blue team security module if we are able not only to shift left, but the event-driven. And being event-driven, it's not like there is an action for every security pattern that we know. It actually creates a layer deeper than that. It's being creative enough that the red team is now after us. They need to understand us instead of us just understanding them. It's time to level up the playing field. That is my ultimate evolution in terms of blue team as of now. Erez?
Yeah.
Do I still have time, or I'm trying to?
If you have a possibility, you have a couple more minutes. Yeah.
Okay. So as a last note, I would just like to say that moving forward, this type of situations where you see ML or AI, which is kind of a buzzword to be honest, but it's not only if clauses, right? It's actually being data driven. We are moving into this scenario, but it's really hard, for example, for any management in security or even security expert to really put the ego aside and show the value of a blue team in terms of being a profit center, not a cost center, right? The only way for us to do that is to be enablers or to be inside of the way of working of companies as of now. And we are not. We are normally the gatekeepers. We are the guys that are on the door saying, hey, this is risky. I see this pattern before. And we are never bringing up to the table the research part of work. I bet there is 1,000 blue guys in any of these conversations between blue and red team that want to do more, but they are stuck in doing the old ways of doing things, like the CMs, the PIMs, all of the tooling instead of the creative part of the game. So the evolution of us as a blue team is to move into a research field, not to do the repetitive tasks that machines excel at. We don't excel at that.
You muted yourself, I think.
I did. I mean, this was my end point. I was trying to make a little bit of my own ideas in the end, but also I'll leave some room for development in the questions.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of questions to you, but let's wait for the panel. So next speaker is our purple expert again, Tanya Janca, CEO and founder of We Hack Purple. Take it away, Tanya.
Looks like she just disconnected by accident.
Yeah, seems like we have some technical difficulties today.
I've invited her to speak. Tanya, feel free to hit that button that you hit last time to join us.
Hi, are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we are.
Wonderful. Oh my gosh, Discord. So many rude words that I'd like to say about it. But anyway, let's talk about AppSec instead. So thank you so much for having me. So I want to talk about Purple Team. So the two previous speakers spoke about, Red Team, offensive security, the idea of, testing our bounds, making sure that our defenses actually work. And then, of course, our other speakers spoke about Blue Team, like setting up defenses, making sure all of our bases are covered, assessing risk, making sure those risks are covered, etc. So I like to think of Purple Team as sort of, collaborative application security. So I know people will talk about Purple Team exercises where they pit the red team and the blue team against each other, and they kind of, the red team attacks, the blue team defends and sees, how it goes. And I know that's a thing, but it actually happens very rarely out in the wild. It's very, very rare people do those exercises. And most of the time, what is happening is collaborative security. Whenever I've done AppSec, wherever I've worked, I've been that bridge between the security team and the devs. I try to break down silos and make sure they're actually talking. I try to, every time the security team is going to do something that affects the software developers or the DevOps people, I try to talk with them about it and pass it by them and make sure that I get their opinion and their feedback, and we adjust so that we're not breaking all the cool stuff they're doing. I use a lot of empathy and advocacy. So by empathy, I mean, I try to figure out, what matters to the security team, what matters to the dev teams, and then try to adjust accordingly. And, when we're making decisions, try to remember this team needs that, or that team has this deadline, or this team won't be able to succeed with this without that. And so how can we secure that so that they can still do it? Or what other way could we accomplish the thing they need, but securely? And then with advocacy, what I mean is socializing and spreading the word. So that can mean sometimes, me giving a lunch and learn. It can mean me holding a consultation. So I've written a new policy. I want everyone's opinion first before I release it. I want to talk to teams that might not be able to be compliant for a long time and how we can work together to make that happen. And constantly reinforce that no one's getting fired. I'm not making a policy to run around and smash people with. I'm making a policy so that we can try to achieve that and try to kind of herd everyone in the same way so that then we can have a steady security posture across our entire organization. It also means putting people first, and then processes, and then tooling, and figuring out how we can make all of those things function at the absolute best capacity. So I've seen places where they, buy $500,000 worth of super cool AppSec tools, and they have the process for actually pushing out a bug fix is awful. And the people are frustrated. And I'm like, why are we spending $500,000 on these 3 tools when instead we could hire someone to redo the processes? Or we could hire a consultant that will set up a bunch of pipelines for us and automate this? Or, do you know what I mean? And so looking from a holistic approach at all the different things and making sure we're not just concentrating on one of those 3 pillars. And then the last thing that Purple Team really focuses on, and this is same with all the DevOps people and all the security people, is continuous learning. And so you as a security person, I'm pretty sure everyone listening to this, you're at DEF CON because you want to learn, because you want to improve yourself. Well, part of security is us teaching all the rest of the business the security lessons that we've learned and as they apply to them. So if you have people that are product owners, teaching them about why security is value. It's value for the customers. It's part of the product. It is a non-functional requirement that's absolutely essential. Or it's about working with the devs and teaching them the cool new tool that you found or tricks that you found for helping them secure their systems better. Or talking to the operations team about, there's this vulnerability out in the wild right now. I'm really concerned about it. Can we test our systems? So you as a security person spreading and sharing important knowledge that applies to different areas of the business. So you want to continuously learn, but you also want to help the rest of the business continuously learn security so that we can meet our goals, secure apps. And that's what I wanted to share, the idea that Purple Team is collaborative application security, that we bring all the different teams together, we share the knowledge. We are the bridge that brings everyone together. And I know that sounds like, Care Bears and hugs and rainbows, but really, if you are trying to work in AppSec and you aren't good with empathy or advocacy, it's an uphill battle every day for you. If you don't know how to negotiate, if you don't know how to persuade, if you don't know how to see anyone else's side, you're gonna have a really tough time. And that is what I have to say for now until question period. Erez?
Awesome. Yeah. So thank you so much for that. We got to the panel part of this session. So if anyone has a question, please feel free to write it down in the colorful AppSec text channel, and we'll try to dig some questions out of there. But first, Tanya, I want to start with you. It's a last in, first out. So you spoke last. Let's get a bit into this collaborative security that you talk about, because you mentioned that. What exactly does that mean? How does it look like in a day-to-day basis? I'm a developer in a company. What does a collaborative security looks like for me?
It means that the security team talks to you not only when there's bad news. I personally believe that so whenever I start doing AppSec somewhere, I want to meet every dev I can. I want them to know my door is open, and I start sharing information as soon as I can. So let's say, I want us to have a secure coding standard. And so I'm going to start it off as conversation. So, hey, we don't have any sort of standards for secure coding. I really want us to have some. Here's one from the book I wrote, because I can do that. But I was hoping we could start with this. What do you think? And invite them to meetings, talk with them about it, teach it to them, right? Because there'll be junior devs where it might be new to them, and there'll be senior devs where maybe they know it by the back of their hand. For teams supporting lots of legacy stuff, it's okay, so you don't have to be compliant the first day with this. I understand your app is old enough to vote. So what can we do to make it So what can we do to reduce the risk? The idea of collaborative security is not I push out rules and they all have to jump through these hoops and then make it through these gates or they can't get their jobs done. It's me helping them secure their apps. And sometimes helping them means teaching them. Sometimes helping them means, getting budget so we can get a tool that they like using, but I also think does good security. It means when I do a proof of concept, I definitely need their opinion. Like let's say I'm trying to pick like a new DAST tool. I want the devs to come and take a look. I want their opinion on, here's some output from the tool. Does this make any sense to you? Like, how could it make more sense? If I'm looking at a few tools, I want to invite some of the devs to come along and look at the tools with me. Because if they're going to use it every day, I think their opinion should be heard. And so the idea of collaborative security is, I don't think that word is new, but I think security teams actually applying it with the way they do their work is somewhat new. When I was a dev, seriously, Erez, they would just come to my desk and tell me I was a shitty dev. They would just be like, we scanned it with this, it's garbage. I'm like, can I use the scanner tool? They're like, no. I'm like, can I see it? No. Here's the report. I'm like, great, who can explain it to me? You should know. Go away, you suck. I feel like we do a lot. That's not collaborative.
Yeah, okay, so collaborative basically means the opposite of what we see in most places.
Yes, but I swear it's changing. Place after place, they're changing the way they do things. They're trying hard. Not every place, but I'm seeing big changes. I really am.
I agree. So, Luis, tell me how much important collaboration is in a blue team?
That is one of the most key, I would say, developments that we need to make for sure. For example, during incident procedures, one of the things that we lack the most is a full understanding of the data flows. The only people that can explain to us normally either are the SREs, the DevOps, or the developers, right? So when we create a war room, if we don't have the necessary connections and the right mentality to be on board against a unified threat, what you get is like you ping somebody on Slack, then the guy is not really answering. You need to ping the manager, then creates a scenario like Tanya said that people feel fear and accountability. What if I don't answer? What if I take too much time? And the bad decision flow starts whenever you start to rush things, right? When everything is clear and you do what auditors call fire drills, which is in fact a similar exercise that we actually put to the test these types of procedures. That is where you see the biggest flaws in collaboration. One of the good examples that I can give you is that normally we don't even invite red team participants to the war rooms. It's only the blue team and a couple of asset managers within the channel. But I think that is one of the examples that we need the red team there, because the fresh ideas that come from a guy that is looking into the eyes of an attacker are super important also. So everybody that are a part of the system should be heard and should be a part of the conversation. That's the only way for blue teams to live through others, not by themselves trying to put walls or gates in the middle.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask you a question now from the channel. From your blue perspective, do you think the time for application security is not enough, as adversaries has basically unlimited time? This is a question by AM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is interesting. Like the way that I am evolving the multiple business units under my scope for blue teaming, or what I call a defensive point of view, is that we integrate a lot of threat sources and log information, right? But do we do anything ahead of the attack? Like, do we do any preparation in terms of patterns of risk? A good example would be, normally we integrate, I'll give a real life example, we integrate New Relic and we put AWS information, we put a bunch of threat feeds and I don't know, something else that in the middle, like, I don't know, Splunk, something. Everything is coordinating in terms of events. the number one question that I make for AppSec individuals on the blue team side is, are you doing anything new that will create a different layer of proportion in terms of complexity for the attacker? With that information, instead of just blacklisting the pattern or verifying a threat risk by combining multiple sources, are you doing anything new in order to create a different complexity level? A good example would be, for example, if you whitelist the normal human behavior within your application, like that a user would go for, I will give you one example from my world. We'll go for a classifieds, we'll go for an ad, right? Like you see on eBay, Amazon, whatever. Is it normal for an individual that connects to that to go directly, or from login directly to password? Do you rate that action in any way, shape, or form as a high-risk action, since he completely bypassed all the menus that the human would see there, and therefore you put that under scope? And the next section would be, if the guy tries to change the password, then send them a challenge or something. And this will be dynamic behavior, right? So even if the guy changed but is not following the normal trend of a human, are you able to capitalize on the massive amount of data and create a dynamic baseline that is always trying to verify the risk level of an action and create a complexity for the attacker? If you do that, then you have enough time, because the guy is always trying to think, what can I do that will mimic a human to a certain extent? He doesn't know. He's probably going to try and create noise, and therefore you automatically know that he's an attack. I don't know if is this a good example, or is...
Yeah, it's an excellent example. And this is exactly what we're talking about here when we try to compare our efforts with, let's call it, unlimited time that adversaries have. So Pedro, looking from your red perspective, we talked about adversaries and their theoretical unlimited time. You are the adversary in this. You definitely don't have unlimited time. So what is your perspective on that? And I think in general, what are the challenges to organizations or to red teams when designing the red team exercises? Because you do have limitations after all.
Yeah, sure. And the limitations are actually very, very important. Well, that's a real issue, at least for small, medium-sized companies, even for even larger companies. Time is not unlimited, and since time is money is also not unlimited. So there's the issue: how much time and how much money can you invest in a red team exercise in a way that you can really get the benefits out of it, and makes it a valid exercise, instead of just putting a checkbox under the okay, we performed a red team exercise, whatever that means. There are several challenges that red teamers have, and also companies have. For example, usually some of the challenges start at the very, very beginning with scope and rules of engagement. Companies want a red team exercise, and when they sit down with us and we are trying to design the exercise, figuring out what's important for them, what's their risk assessment and their threat and attack models, we come up with the scope and the rules of engagement. And usually it's kind of like this: the red teamers want access to everything, and the companies go like, okay, if it's a production server, it's off limits, it's the smartphone app is just a beta version, and there's those 2 or 3 critical legacy servers that you cannot touch. And senior staff cannot be social engineered, just the junior staff. So they put this amount of rules of engagement that are not really realistic from the point of view of a real attacker. And it's our job as a red teamer, as a security person, to properly explain the reasons and drive the customer to a point that he understands that certain things should be tested. And of course, we as red teamers also have to have some flexibility to understand that there are some systems that are really critical, and in order for them to be touched, if there's no test machines, you should be really, really careful about doing that. So there's kind of this game that happens at the very start. Then of course, as a red teamer, there's also other types of challenges. Tanya and Luis talked a lot about persons and the importance that a person has in the security life cycle of a company, which is paramount. So I would like to bring this topic that's quite trending, that's ethics while doing red team exercises. For example, there's been some news of phishing campaigns in which the context was, I think, a salary bonus or a promotion or whatever, and then people on the news reported, oh, that's off limits, you shouldn't, play with the person's employees' feelings and so forth. And ethics can be a real challenge, especially in social engineering, because, in a way you are scamming people. So, but also the entire exercise is a challenge, and the exercise must be valid. So if you think about a phishing campaign as just, sending an email to trick users, then yes, that's a low blow. But a phishing campaign under the umbrella of a social engineering campaign is much more than that, or should be. Awareness sessions should be promoted, success metrics should be analyzed, defenses should be evaluated, and this should never be about the person or who clicked the malicious link, for example. It's about how did that email ended up in the user's mailbox in the first place? What defenses were there in place? How many users clicked the link? How up-to-date is your infrastructure? How segmented it is? How resistant to attack? So this is not about the person that clicked the link. It's about the company as a whole. Has the company, reduced training programs, or is the company, promoting the right security mindset, explaining and training their employees? In the end, when something fails, it's always the company fault, and it's not a person's fault. So I believe it's possible to conduct realistic social engineering campaigns, without making people feel like crap.
Yeah, so the blame issue is always something that is on fire. That's a really great segue to a question that we got from Ghosty3, or I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Ghost. This is for Tanya. So Tanya, how do you build bridge between dev teams and security compliance teams? And also, I will add my question here of how do you look at security compliance versus security best practices?
That is a great question. I would have to say that I go over and I talk to them like a person. You would not believe how many AppSec teams I've joined or security teams that I've joined where I said, oh, okay, so the devs are doing this. Did you go talk to them? And they're like, well, no. Did you go and have a meeting with them? Do they even know who you are? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, I want the devs to all know who we are. Like, they might not know every member of the AppSec team, but like they should know we exist. They should know we're here to help. And I want a bunch of them to know my face. And I know with COVID right now, a lot of us are not working in person, and that is totally cool. But having a Zoom meeting, talking with them on Slack or Teams or Discord or whatever you use at work to chat. So I would first start with going over, like, especially if you're starting a new job, it's kind of easy as an excuse to go introduce yourself. I'll ask, can I come to a team meeting and like speak like 3 minutes on like, hi, I'm Tanya, I'm new, I'm part of the AppSec team, here's what I do, I'm here to help you, and start like that. And then when there's a compliance thing that I want, or there's a thing that I want, I rate them and I'm like, hey, I have this thing I have to do. I'm wondering if we could meet up and chat about how we could do it in the least painful way possible. I I have some self-deprecating jokes that I will use because sometimes I find compliance pain in the butt and I don't necessarily love it. I also try to automate things so it's not as annoying. And then when the results come out, I explain, so now we negotiate because I know they're not going to do all the things I need. Like if you have to follow HIPAA or GDPR or ISO 27001, SOC 2, whatever the thing is, you can't negotiate on that because you must, if you're handling credit cards, you must do certain things to be PCI compliant. And I will explain that. But we might negotiate on when or how or who does which work. Like maybe my team can help with some of the things. Maybe we'll get a consultant to help with stuff. Like one of the places where I work, we started using a SaaS tool for the first time and we literally found like 80,000 bugs because they have lots of legacy and they have like hundreds and hundreds of apps. And the devs just, for obvious reasons, were a little uncomfortable. And we said, listen, we're going to hire 2 people for 4 months to triage all of these, validate 100% of the results for you. And then if there's time left, they'll even help you fix the bugs. But we're going to pay for this to assist you. And we don't expect you to validate these results. That's our responsibility, but we need you to help us fix those bugs. And so then we're going to have meetings with them to talk with them about, okay, so, there's this many bugs. We're worried about that many. Can we plan them out in your upcoming releases that you're planning and put them in your schedule? And so then we're not essentially putting an avalanche of work on them and then walking away. We're working with them. And so that's how I do it. I do a lot of talking to them. I also do a lot of, I realize that I'm here as a speaker at DEF CON, so people are like, you're great at presenting, but I'd like to note I sucked when I started. It took a long time to get good at it. And so anyone listening here, if you do lunch and learns and you do little presentations, even if you're not great at it, the fact that you're trying, people will see that and they'll get to know you. And it sounds weird, but it breaks down a lot of barriers. And so then when I go to talk to that team, that one dev that went to all the lunch and learns or went to some of them, it's like, oh, hi, Tanya. I'm like, hi, how's it going? And it's you already have an ally on that team, a person who's in it with you. And they'll try to help you. They don't even realize it. It's just people love helping. And if they're going to your presentations or they're going to the meetups with you or whatever the thing is, they see the value of what you're doing and they want to help you get there. And so, yeah, those are my suggestions. There was another question in the tech chat that was for me, but all of all of us could answer if you want, Erez. The one about implementing new security tools.
Yeah, so you mentioned an avalanche in your previous answer. I think this is part of the avalanche, right? Implementing new security tools, tons of practices. This is definitely an overload for developers many times. So how do you keep the balance in this part of the avalanche?
Yeah, I teach them the tool. I involve them with proof of concepts if they want to come. And then when it comes out, I teach them the tool. I also try to create little resources that go with the tool. So for instance, one place where I've been doing some consulting. So we wanted to put some tools into their pipelines and, they have hundreds of pipelines. I'm not going to do all of them. So what I did was we did it and tuned it and did everything in one pipeline. And then we shared the YAML with everyone, the code. And we're you build the task like this, add it here. This is where it needs to go. Here is the code for it. Here is this, here is that. And then made this cute little video of us implementing it. And then turned it all into an email of how they can do it themselves and to ask us if they have problems. And then again, have a meeting with us after you run the scanner. We'll go over the results with you. And I realize that this doesn't scale very well, but lots of teams you offer, they don't accept. But knowing that you're there if they get stuck is what matters, if that makes sense. And so teaching it to them, offering as many things as you can, and also telling them what things they have to fix and which things they don't have to. So for instance, if there's like a licensing violation, it's like, whoa, we don't want to get sued. But if, there's high, mediums, and lows coming from, about some of your dependencies, telling them in advance, like, listen, you have to fix all the highs, but we can negotiate on mediums and lows. Telling them that in advance makes it less scary. So try to make it less scary and let them know you're there.
I totally agree with that. I hear a lot from people who are wondering about if they want to use something, and I ask them, what would make you use that? And sometimes they say the simplest thing, like, if I knew who my focal point was, if I have any issue with it, something like that. It's so easy. So I agree 100% with you.
We do build something similar, like Tanya was saying. Like, for example, we do have currently on the pipelines, we run a SAST on the QA in pre-prod, and then we run DAST at the point of deployment when you deploy that in production. And the reports are catered, meaning the reports that come out of this secure development lifecycle are catered to each team. Like the report goes on a Monday with the introduced vulnerabilities or the path to learn on the report of Monday. And on the bottom part of the report, we curate the best learning resources that they can get to achieve a mitigation of those types of vulnerabilities. Like, for example, if a team is really good at making queries to the database and they do the proper sanitization, but they are really bad at access or authorization, we, on the bottom, we would have an excellent article for IDORs and explain how can they mitigate it from scratch, right? And if that is not needed, every month we do a monthly with all the developers explaining the scores. Like, they have actual, in a sense of capture the flag, they have scores of how much did you improve over time, not how much did you get worse. Because if you get worse, means that me as a blue team or me as a security individual, maybe I need to enable them in a more secure environment. So I need to help them to get better, not just blame them for not having the right patterns of behaviors, right? Yeah. So we catered more to them instead of they catering to us and be afraid of security.
Yeah. So you had a question for Pedro, right?
I do. I mean, this is mostly for Pedro because this is a hot topic for blue teams. Is Pedro, when you're doing a red team exercise, is it important for you to be whitelisted, or you prefer to be seen as the attacker from the outside, regardless of the complexity or time constraints?
Yeah, that's also an interesting question from the point of view that kind of relates with the time/money that the company is willing to invest. For me, ideally, I see a red team exercise more like a black box exercise. It can be kind of gray box exercise, but never white box. And I say this because we need to understand the differences between a vulnerability assessment, that's one thing, a penetration testing, that's another thing, and then there's red teaming. Red teaming, by definition, should have more time, at least more stretched in time. You don't have to be permanently attacking the organization that you're trying to enter, but you need enough time to be creative, to figure out maybe new attack vectors. Depending on the rules of engagement, even a physical presence might be allowed. And those are the fun ones where you can actually go into the facilities of a company and drop an implant and so forth. So yeah, I guess
agree.
It depends.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, mine is mostly my question is mostly from the fact that when we are doing the blue team preparation for, I even prefer not to know when. I prefer not to advise teams when they are about to get a red team assessment, just to verify the incident procedures and all of the security layers that we sell so much to the board. They should be able to sustain a it's not like hackers are going to call your company and going to be like, hey, we're going to breach you in 7 days, so be ready. It's like they are there all the time, right? Yeah. So that's why whitelist
And
for
I mean,
me is a hard time.
If you're doing just straight penetration testing, I think whitelist is a plus. I think it should be in sync with the blue team. You can actually test a lot much more stuff. You can have a better vision of what the company does and which assets the company has, and it's also okay to test the blue team. And you should be working this together, maybe not completely as we are used to with the definition that we have now as a purple team, but definitely working together. And maybe Tanya can explain how can we fit in a purple team after the exercise or during the exercise if it's a white box kind of pen testing, and how can we fit in the purple team when there's a red team exercise that is not by definition supposed to be coordinated with the blue team.
I feel like
I just want to give a heads up that we're approaching the end of our time. So please, all of you, dear panelists, keep your answers short and sweet.
awesome. I feel like security is really, really, really good at keeping secrets. And as an industry, like at like the security professionals, like boots on the ground, we kind of suck at marketing. And if we could learn to share more information, like for instance, the red team doesn't want to tell everyone they're coming, but having presentations after, letting devs come. So like quite often, like we just don't include the devs. We just don't include like the DevOps team, the operations folks in these presentations. If we could share more, like I was super nervous when I started doing it. I was worried that all of them would think I was stupid, to be honest. Like, Tanya screwed this up. Like, there was a security incident. She sucks that a security incident happened. But they didn't. Turned out they're really interested. They learned and they did better. And so maybe what we need to do is start figuring out more ways that safely we can share when possible.
Awesome.
Anyone else?
A very quick question for our Blue Louis. You talked about artificial intelligence. You talked about machine learning tooling. Aren't you killing your own team? Kind of automating your role and cutting the branch you're sitting on?
No, they hate doing the part that they are doing today, right? So they are always trying to get outside of the hamster wheel that they live, looking at known patterns. Or imagine, so today something like Heartbleed 2 comes out. Oh my God, let's look to the logs. Did we get attacked before this? Is this pattern known? They hate that side of living on the past, right? They normally live either on the past or they live on the present with afraid of the future. What I try to pass for them is, can you imagine the freedom that is you looking so far to the future that you are predicting all your threat scenarios and building the positive layers of security on top of it with the developers, with the infrastructure experts, with guys like Pedro trying to test us, with people like Tanya teaching us how to build the process in a more humane way, right? That is what we need to do. Like if we are afraid of machine learning or AI, why are you here? Do you want to do repetitive work? There is no end game for that, because at some point, like Pedro said, the money will come in and say, look, why am I paying 7, 8, 9, 10 senior SOC analysts and threat intelligence and whatever, when I can have a tool that does this and cut the cost by 80%. And that's where the humans go in and say, wait a minute, I like to buy the tool, but I want to customize it and put my top expertise on that, so we can be ahead instead of behind of the attackers. That is for me a win-win situation for it.
Cool, sounds good. Okay, and the last question, Tanya, for you. Let's make it quick. Although I read the question, I don't think we can. How do companies culturally make the shift from red versus blue to purple?
I think it has to do with training. And I think that if it comes from the top, that's the best. But if you can hire that one person with that infectious personality where they are so excited about security and they're open to sharing and then encouraging it. So it might be a consultant. It might be that you need to add a new security person to your team. It could be that you send the managers on training and they come back. I mean, like, obviously I'm going to tell you, like, buy my book because it's going to tell you all the stuff. I've had a lot of people say, like, you teach AppSec in this really soft way, but I do it because that's what actually works. And if you send someone into an AppSec job and they don't know that you have to compromise, you have to negotiate, you have to persuade, like half of your job every day is convincing devs and management and the rest of the security team to go along with your plan and meet in the middle. And so, yeah, I believe that you kind of have to build that skill set. And some people poo-poo soft skills, but I don't think you can get far without them in AppSec.
Yeah. Okay, and we are at the end of the hour, actually 1 minute beyond. Thank you so much for our panelists, Pedro Umbelino, and Luis Gomes and Tanya Janca. Thank you so much for being with us today for the opening panel for the AppSec Village, DEF CON 29. Keep safe, everyone. We can keep on the chat. Go for it, and have a great con. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.